Dear students, let us start the discussion on today's newspaper, that is 13th May 2016. Before going into the newspaper, let us understand one thing. With regard to this examination, the UPSC has given the cutoff marks for every person and also differentiated between their mains and interview marks. If you understand, if you go through that particular sheet, which I will be uploading on the CivilsPrep, if you go through the sheet, you will understand that the interview played a very crucial role in deciding the success this year. Almost some 40 to 50 marks of difference it was made through interview. I can compare two people I know. One is Nivedita Naidu. She got very good marks in mains, but in interview she got around 140 marks. On the other hand, Snehaja got 206 marks in interview. So develop your presentation skills too, not just writing skills, oral presentation skills too. That is, you expressing your viewpoints openly and liberally, that helps to promote yourself for the interview. Let's come back to the discussions on the newspaper of 13th May 2016. So in this case, the first one is related to the education system. Now here remember, Indian education system is largely content driven rather than understanding driven. And teaching to the test, it means that it is also exam driven. The teacher training is the last thing on the mind. And most of the teachers teaching in primary education, they did not take the profession by passion but by compulsion, as all the other avenues are closer to them. So the relative motivation of the teachers is very less. When these people nurture the future generations of the country, it means that the creative skill in the young individuals is going to come down. And understand the situation of differently abled persons in these circumstances of learning. So when the majority of them itself are ignored, then this minority of the faction, they are going to face a worse disaster in the future. So the next thing is, not without reservations. Now, the Napoleon Bonaparte, he made a statement, ability is nothing without opportunity. I believe this a lot. So even if you have the ability, the new tech revolution, what it has created is the opportunity. If I am able to teach to you through a small iPad before me, it is just an opportunity provided to me by the technology. Similarly, when there is so much of discrimination and oppression, the reservations provided for the necessary opportunity for the marginalized sections in the society. The counter argument to this always is merit and efficiency. The reservations are killing the merit and efficiency. So it might be an exception case. An young 22-year-old woman, she got first in the UPSC examination, and she's a Dalit girl. So she might be privileged because of the upliftment, but however, in the future it is going to become a major trend. The reason being is, when an opportunity is given to an individual, then that makes him to prove his merit and efficiency or ability. So in this case, the merit, how it will get affected through efficiency, I will say it this way, how it will affect the reservations. Now, if you talk about a study conducted by Thomas Weisskopf of Michigan University and Ashwini Deshpande of Delhi School of Economics, what they said in railways, the merit was not compromised, our efficiency was not compromised because of reservations. In some divisions, actually, the merit was improved. So, in this context, their major comparison is this. Especially at the decision-making and managerial level, many of the people from these marginalized sections, they want to prove their abilities to the government. Now, I have a personal experience of one of my students who got selected to IAS. His name is Dr. Raja Dayanidhi. Now, I know his motivation to serve the people. So I will say I never saw a person of such a motivation levels in serving the people, whatever be the case. So the merit argument and reservations, there are two issues which debunk that, one Tamil Nadu and the second one is few of the case studies like this. Now coming to the creative destruction, the Bankruptcy Code Bill. Now, in this case, in India, opening a company is much easier than closing the one. If you take the ease of doing business index, India is placed 103 rank out of 189 countries with regard to the insolvency. The major challenge over here is the inability to close the business, 136 rank out of 189 countries. The major challenge is to close down the business over here. So, last week we saw an article which shows that Japan has got the best insolvency structure. India has got the worst, and followed by the Brazil. So in this context, the Insolvency and Bankruptcy Code Bill is going to change this situation. So here, an insolvency professional will be appointed, and within 180 days the issue has to be closed. So if 180 days the issue is closed, the creditors will get the first advantage over the liquidated assets of the factory. If you remember the Raghuram Rajan, the existing delay, it is providing a kind of a right to the promoters to sit in the chair in spite, or to run the company in spite of their failures. So this 180 days closure of this particular insolvency, it is going to improve the situation on the ground, especially with regard to the management of the companies. Now coming to the Dehradun, with regard to the Uttarakhand crisis, the landmark judgment in this case is Bommai case. Now let us go through the Namboodiripad government. It is the first government which was overthrown using Article 356. And the next landmark event occurred is the Bommai dismissal. Now, in Karnataka, after Ramakrishna Hegde moved away from the office in 1994, then came Bommai. So, the Janata Party MLAs, they shifted the parties, and many of them joined the Congress in Karnataka. Then after that, the governor, Mr. Venkat Subbaiah, he has dismissed the Bommai's government, saying that it has lost the majority, but he did not give an opportunity for the floor test. And the second thing is, the Venkat Subbaiah's decision was upheld, and cabinet recommended it to the president, and president's rule has come into force. So the governor's report has become a basis for the president's rule, which has stated of the constitutional machinery failure in Karnataka. Then Bommai, he went to the Supreme Court, where the nine judges bench of the Supreme Court has given a judgment against the misuse of Article 356. And this is what is called as famous S.R. Bommai case. In this case, the Supreme Court differentiated between constitutional machinery failure and administrative machinery failure. If law and order has failed, it mostly comes under the administrative machinery failure, not the constitutional machinery failure. And the next is the merit of the judgment of the governor. The facts and supported arguments can be verified by the court. If necessary, it can give the life to the dismissed government. That is the second thing. And the third most important point, and most importantly, the only place where a majority shall be proven, a majority shall be put to test, is the floor of the Legislative Assembly. It is not Raj Bhavan. So these are the various conditions. Now, after that, the misuse of the Article 356 has drastically come down. Now, the presidents also have taken the support of this judgment, and repeatedly they are very assertive in sending back the proposals for the imposition of president's rule. K.R. Narayanan, twice he sent the cabinet recommendation back for the reconsideration. So one with regard to the UP, the other one with the Rabri Devi government in Bihar. Now later, when Abdul Kalam has dismissed the Bihar government, then the Supreme Court has reinstated it. So however, the president's discretion, the personal stature, these are also determining his equations with the government of the day. But however, the president need to be assertive and strong with regard to the misuse of the Article 356 of the Constitution. And coming to the Geospatial bill. So what this bill says, any depiction, dissemination of geospatial information without the necessary permissions from the government is punishable. And if the borders of India are depicted wrongly, then 100 crores of rupees can be imposed as a penalty, and along with this, a 7 years imprisonment can be imposed. This is quite contradictory to the geospatial bill which was proposed, geospatial policy which was proposed. According to geospatial policy, 30 days is the time during which the necessary permissions have to be given by the government authority. If not given, it has been considered as permission given and the agency can go forward with it. And the second is the dissemination of geospatial information. Will be considered as unclassified. That is what is the policy talks about. And finally, the fine is less than 1 crore of rupees when orders are not being wrongly depicted. So, but however, here it is 100 crores of rupees. So, in this context, the Ministry of Home Affairs bill and the policy of Department of Science and Technology, there is some conflict. So, there is all probability that the bill will be withdrawn by the Home Ministry. Now, coming to the Brazilian crisis. Now, Dilma Rousseff's government, or she as a president, stepped down from the office and the vice president took it over. So, in this case, what are the reasons for her impeachment? The Senate has voted to initiate the impeachment proceedings against her, which has to be approved by the Congress with 2/3 majority. So, in this case, the major accusation is she has not informed to the Congress and made the changes to the budget passed by the Congress. So she did not, provide for the necessary increase in expenditure, report the increase in expenditure beyond the budget to the Senate. And second is, she borrowed from the financial institutions without the permission from the government of the day, the Senate of the day. Sorry. So in this case, the Workers' Party's 13-year rule has ended. So the vice president who has become an enemy now, so this Mr. Michael, so this person also has too many corruption charges against him. It is going to drive the Brazil into a much worse crisis. So let us see this. What are the basis for this crisis? There is a wide rampant corruption in Brazil, that is one thing. And all the leaders, they are one way or the other way charged with corruption. And the media, it also ganged up against the government of the day. Third, exports are majorly commodity driven, and the fall in the commodity prices has led to the worsening of the welfare programs. You all know that Bolsa Familia, the conditional cash transfer scheme, is the most successful welfare program of the Brazil, is facing the financial cuts, and discontent among the people has increased. So across these circumstances, the Rousseff's impeachment was initiated. Now it is going to make the conditions worsen because of the political instability. Now coming to the Prime Minister's style of managing the foreign policy. Now, initially it was the foreign services are called as Prime Ministerial services due to the importance given by the Prime Minister Nehru. Though Prime Minister Nehru managed the Ministry of External Affairs by himself, he has given due importance to the foreign services officers. He operated through the foreign services officers rather than through the Prime Minister's office. Now, later when Lal Bahadur Shastri has come up into the office, he has appointed Pillai Committee to institutionalize the Ministry of External Affairs away from the Prime Minister's control. And after that, when Indira Gandhi and Rajiv Gandhi has become the Prime Ministers, though it was a separate ministry, but still the Prime Minister held the greater control over the issues. You know the famous dismissal of Foreign Secretary by the Prime Minister Rajiv Gandhi. And then if you see the Prime Minister Atal Bihari Vajpayee's era, the National Security Advisor Brijesh Mishra has took the central stage after the Shiv Shankar Menon and Mr. Dikshit. All these people have played an important role with regard to the foreign policy is concerned. Now in the Prime Minister Modi's era, the Ministry of External Affairs was reduced to the margins and more importance was given to the National Security Advisors. The minimum information necessary for making the necessary arrangements is also not given to the Ministry of External Affairs. So the security considerations are dominating the managing of the foreign affairs rather than the diplomatic considerations. Added to that, new think tanks are being developed such as India Foundation, which are giving the greater importance, which are getting greater mileage rather than the officials of the Ministry of External Affairs. And most of the management of the South Asian affairs and also with the Arab world, these are done under the aegis of National Security Advisor rather than the Foreign Secretary. So it is the time the Prime Minister shall give necessary space for the Ministry of External Affairs to operate. Now, drought relief order. You know that the center left the drought management as a subject of the states. And states did not declare many, the Haryana, Bihar, they did not declare the drought. Now, in these circumstances, the Swaraj Abhiyan of Yogendra Yadav, it has filed a writ petition in Supreme Court. So now, according to this petition, what the Supreme Court held is the Disaster Management Act 2005 is not being implemented properly. So in this context, it said the Disaster Mitigation Fund, National Disaster Response Force, National Disaster Plan and Assessment, all these things need to be immediately taken off. So within 180 days, these shall be put in place. And the next is, the Supreme Court has clearly directed that even though there is an adequate rainfall, there can be the drought in many other places where there are erratic monsoons. So the irrigation potential created, etc., cannot be a basis for not declaring a particular area as a drought prone. Moreover, if you see the reasons for the drought, one is excessive use of the irrigation of water for the water intensive crops like sugarcane, rice cultivation, etc. Lack of recharging of the groundwater. The reason is the groundwater is not charged in India and there is a free power. There are many free riders on the groundwater. So the excessive exploitation of the groundwater. So that's why the groundwater also need to be charged, shall be made payable because it's a common resource and few people are excessively exploiting it at the cost of the others. And the third thing is, with regard to this canal irrigation, etc., there is huge loss of the water due to lack of proper silting clearance measures. So if the irrigation potential created and irrigation potential utilized, there is a huge gap. So there are remedial actions which are very necessary for this field. If not, India will already described as a water-stressed country. It will soon convert itself into a water-scarce country. Now coming to the Bangladesh crisis. So in Bangladesh, Jamaat-e-Islami leaders are being executed. In 1971, when Liberation War was going on, these Jamaat-e-Islami leaders have supported the Pakistani forces and were responsible for a huge crime against the humanity. In these circumstances, 2009, Sheikh Hasina government has established this international tribunal for war crimes. So according to the judgments of this, these people are hanged to death. So Pakistan has opposed to this and it said it is violation of the tripartite agreement between India, Pakistan and Bangladesh in 1974. And Bangladesh has clearly said the agreement agrees for the citizens of the Bangladesh not to be executed by the citizens of Pakistan not to be executed by the Bangladesh, not for the citizens of the Bangladesh, and said Pakistan not to interfere in its internal matters. And India, on the other hand, supported this particular executions for the war crimes. Now, with regard to the interlinking of water, the government is seriously looking at Ben and Ketwa River interlinking. So, in this case, getting the permissions from the Ministry of Environment is the major hurdle which has to be passed. Try to see this, study about this Ben and Ketwa rivers for the prelims. Now, coming to the most polluted city. So Delhi, it was ranked as the 11th out of the 103 cities under the Global Urban Ambient Pollution Database 2016, which was released by WHO. According to this, the particulate matter less than 2.3, which is responsible for asthma and various respiratory illnesses, is the major reason for the Delhi pollution. So what are the sources of this? The diesel cars, thermal plants, and then is the construction activity, all these are responsible for particulate matter less than 2.5 to be accumulated in atmosphere. So these are the things we need to understand in this news. Thank you very much. All the best.